My name is Lauren Mitchell. I'm 32 years old, and I didn't know my life was about to be publicly dismantled until my phone started vibrating non-stop on a Tuesday morning that had started like every other. No warning, no build-up, just a sudden, aggressive buzz that wouldn't stop. I was still in bed, one leg tangled in the sheets, half asleep and annoyed more than anything. I remember thinking it was probably a work email gone wrong, maybe a calendar reminder looping, something boring, something manageable. It wasn't. By the time I unlocked my phone, the screen was flooded with notifications. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, even LinkedIn. Messages from coworkers I barely spoke to. Missed calls from my sister. A voicemail notification from my mother. My stomach tightened before I even read a word. The name that appeared again and again was one I hadn't thought about in months. Emily Carter, my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend. The woman he dated before me. The woman he'd told me, carefully, respectfully, had been intense, but in the past. The woman who, until that moment, had been nothing more than a footnote in my life. Her post was everywhere. Same wording, same fury, same calculated heartbreak. R.I.P. to my relationship. He cheated, lied, destroyed everything. She went on to name Daniel, my boyfriend of 4 years, calling him a serial cheater, a narcissist, a fraud. She claimed she'd discovered months of betrayal, that she'd been played, that she'd finally found the courage to speak out. And then she did something that made my hands start shaking. She attached a photo of me and Daniel. Last Christmas, smiling, tagged. She tagged his workplace. She tagged my workplace. She tagged my sister. She tagged my mother, who still struggles to unlock her phone half the time. The implication was clear. I wasn't just collateral damage. I was part of the story she wanted the internet to devour. Here's the thing. Daniel never cheated. Not on her. Not on me. Not ever. The night before those posts went live, we'd been sitting at our kitchen table, receipts spread out between us like a crime scene. Emily had maxed out another credit card. Designer bags. Shoes. Things she'd convinced Daniel were investments when they were together. Things she was still trying to pressure him into helping pay off, even after their breakup, using guilt and nostalgia like weapons. Daniel had finally said no. He'd said it calmly, rationally, painfully. If we were serious about building a future, about buying a home, about stability, we had to talk about money differently. Emily didn't scream. She didn't cry. She grabbed her keys and said, "You're just like all the others, cheap, controlling." Then she left. I thought that was it. A messy conversation, an uncomfortable boundary, normal adult conflict. I had no idea she'd go nuclear. Within an hour of the posts going live, my phone rang. It was my boss. "Lauren," he said carefully, "HR is concerned. Do you want to explain what's happening online?" I couldn't. Not because I was guilty, but because I was in shock. My mother's voicemail came next, her voice trembling, asking what she'd done wrong raising me. My sister texted that she was trying to defend me, but didn't know what to say anymore. Hundreds of comments poured in. Strangers dissecting my face in the photo, calling me names, speculating, judging, and I didn't respond. I didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't correct a single lie. Instead, I did something that would end up saving me. I started taking screenshots. Every post, every comment, every share. I organized them by platform, by timestamp, by escalation. Something in me understood instinctively that this wasn't about defending myself emotionally. This was about proving intent. By noon, I'd called Nathan Brooks, a college friend turned defamation attorney. He reviewed everything silently. Then he said, "Lauren, she just handed you a case most lawyers dream of." By the end of the day, paperwork was filed. Emily Carter had no idea what she'd started, and I wasn't going to stop her. The cease and desist letter was delivered 3 days after Emily's posts went live. Nathan insisted on precision, professional service, signature required. Reception desk at her marketing firm during business hours, where witnesses mattered. I didn't feel relief when it was sent. If anything, my chest felt tighter, like the quiet before a storm that had already proven it could level entire neighborhoods. Emily reacted exactly the way Nathan predicted. The angry messages came first. "Are you serious, Lauren? You're really doing this? You can't handle the truth, so you're hiding behind lawyers now?" Then the insults. Cold, manipulative, heartless. She accused me of weaponizing the legal system and protecting a cheating man. She called Nathan a bottom-feeder attorney who couldn't win a real case. She threatened to countersue. She demanded I make Daniel apologize publicly. I didn't answer a single message. Nathan's instructions were clear. Total silence outside legal channels. That silence drove her insane. Within hours, the public posts returned. Louder, longer, more theatrical. Emily reframed the story. It wasn't about cheating anymore. It was about power. Classic abuser behavior, she wrote. First they cheat, then they threaten you into silence. Her friends piled on. Long threads about how women who speak up get punished, how defamation lawsuits were slap suits, how men hide behind women like me to avoid accountability. Someone posted my LinkedIn profile. Another tagged my company again. I watched it all unfold from my couch, laptop open, folder after folder filling with evidence. Every time my phone buzzed, my body reacted like it was under attack. Jaw clenched, shoulders locked, heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with helplessness. The worst part wasn't the strangers. It was the people who knew me and stayed quiet. Coworkers who stopped making eye contact in the hallway. A friend who texted, "I'm staying neutral until this blows over." My aunt who asked if I'd known about Daniel's habits. Neutral felt like betrayal. A week after the posts, my boss called again. "Lauren, HR needs to see you first thing tomorrow." I barely slept that night. I kept replaying the same thought on a loop. What if silence looks like guilt? The HR meeting was surreal. Shannon from HR had printed everything. Pages and pages of Emily's posts, screenshots of comments threatening boycotts, emails from people demanding my termination for supporting a cheater. Daniel sat beside me, rigid and pale. I slid a binder across the table. Cease and desist. Filed lawsuit. Screenshots of the argument the night before, about money, not infidelity. Texts from Emily calling Daniel cheap and controlling, sent before the first post ever went live. Shannon read carefully, slowly. "So," she said, "you're saying none of these cheating allegations are true?" "Not one," Daniel said, voice steady despite the tension pulling at his neck. "She's retaliating." "And you're pursuing legal action?" "Yes," I said, "for defamation." Shannon exchanged a look with my boss. The silence that followed felt endless. "Lauren," my boss finally said, "this situation is disruptive. The calls, the emails, the reputational risk." My heart sank. "Effective immediately," he continued. "You'll be placed on paid administrative leave while this is resolved." Paid, but sidelined. My career, everything I'd built, put on pause because someone wanted internet sympathy. That night, Nathan called. "I have news," he said. Emily hired counsel. The name made my stomach twist. Mackenzie Wolfe. I'd heard of her. Aggressive, loud, known for turning legal disputes into public morality plays. "What's next?" I asked. "Discovery," Nathan said. "We subpoena everything. Phone records, social media archives, depositions of anyone who shared her posts. She chose the public route. Now we document the truth." Meanwhile, Emily's narrative shifted again. She launched a GoFundMe. The title? "Help Me Fight Legal Abuse." She raised $3,000 in 2 days. I stared at the page in disbelief. She accused us of destroying her mental health, of using money to intimidate her, of trying to erase her voice. I wanted to scream. Instead, Nathan smiled when I sent him the link. "She's doubling down," he said. "That's not confusion. That's malice." The legal bills piled up, but Nathan was unwavering. "When we win," he said, "she pays. And this stops being about compensation and starts being about consequences." 3 weeks later, Discovery cracked the case open. Emily's deposition was scheduled for a Tuesday. Mackenzie tried everything to delay it. Illness, trauma claims, scheduling conflicts. The judge shut it down. "She's posted 17 times this week," the judge said dryly. "She can sit for questions." Watching the deposition transcript later made my skin crawl. Nathan started simple. "Miss Carter, you publicly stated Daniel cheated on you with multiple women. Can you name any of them?" Silence. "I don't remember," Emily said. "You don't remember the names of women your long-term partner cheated with?" Mackenzie objected. The judge overruled. When pressed for evidence, Emily had none. No messages, no photos, no witnesses. "I just knew," she finally snapped. "The way he talked about money, controlling me, that's emotional cheating." Nathan paused. "Are you claiming financial discussions equal infidelity?" She didn't answer. Then came the phone records. Emily had been texting someone named Ryan for months. Late nights, flirtation, plans aligning suspiciously with nights she claimed to be with friends. When Nathan read one message aloud, "Can't wait to feel you again," her face drained of color. During a break, I heard raised voices from the conference room. Mackenzie was furious. "You told me he cheated. You said you had proof." "I was emotional," Emily sobbed. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Shannon. "Lauren," she said, "Emily's employer contacted us." My breath caught. "They terminated her this morning," Shannon continued. "Reputation damage, dishonesty. They're considering their own legal action." I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. That evening, Emily posted again. "Lost my job today because my ex's vendetta. This is what happens when women speak up." Nathan archived it. "She just can't stop," he said quietly. And that's when I understood something terrifying. Emily wasn't trying to win anymore. She was trying to burn everything down. By the time Emily lost her job, the case had stopped feeling like a legal dispute and started feeling like an autopsy. Every day brought new documents, new transcripts, new proof that what she'd done wasn't impulsive. It was intentional. Nathan called it the unraveling phase. I called it living inside a slow-motion car crash. Discovery was relentless. There was no room left for emotion, only facts lined up like soldiers. Emily's phone records were logged by date and time. Her social media archives were reconstructed down to deleted drafts. Every message, every edit, every accidental repost surfaced. And the more evidence came in, the clearer the pattern became. This wasn't about Daniel cheating. It never had been. Her second deposition was worse than the first. Nathan walked her through her own words, one by one. "Miss Carter," he said evenly, "you testified earlier that your belief Daniel cheated was based on intuition. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And yet you publicly stated it as fact?" "I was emotional." "You were emotional when you tagged his employer?" "I wanted accountability." "You were emotional when you tagged Lauren's mother?" Emily shifted in her chair. Her mascara was already smudging, her voice cracking the way it always did when she felt cornered. "I was hurt." Nathan didn't raise his voice. "Ms. Carter, hurt does not convert speculation into fact." Mackenzie objected. The judge overruled. Then Nathan pulled up the text thread that changed everything. Emily to her friend Vanessa, sent the night before the first post. "Daniel's being a controlling jerk about money again. I'm done being patient." Vanessa, "What are you going to do?" Emily, "Teach him a lesson he won't forget." Vanessa, "Like Brittany did with her ex?" Emily, "Exactly. Public shame works. Guys can't handle it." The room went silent. Nathan let it sit. "So," he said calmly, "this wasn't a spontaneous expression of pain. This was premeditated retaliation." Emily started crying. Mackenzie asked for a break. During that break, I sat perfectly still, my hands folded in my lap, feeling something inside me finally click into place. This wasn't personal. It was strategic. And then came the name I hadn't expected to matter. Ryan Cooper, the man in Emily's phone records. At first, she'd called him just a friend, but friends don't exchange hotel addresses. Friends don't send messages at 2:14 a mine saying, "I wish you were here." Friends don't line up their work trips with each other's availability. Nathan subpoenaed Ryan, and Ryan panicked. He didn't show up in person. He gave a video deposition instead, shoulders slumped, eyes darting off screen like he was waiting for permission to lie. He admitted to the affair, 6 months long. It had started well before Daniel ever mentioned budgets or boundaries. Emily had been planning an exit, but Ryan wouldn't leave his wife. When he finally told Emily it was just fun, she spiraled. And that's when she turned her anger outward, toward Daniel, toward me. I remember staring at the screen during Ryan's deposition, listening to him describe dinners, weekends, excuses. I wasn't angry at him. I was disgusted by how disposable everyone seemed to be to Emily when they stopped serving her narrative. 2 days after Ryan's deposition, something unexpected happened. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "This is Melissa Cooper," the woman said, Ryan's wife. My stomach dropped. "I think we should talk," she continued. "I have information you deserve to hear." We met at a quiet coffee shop downtown. Melissa was calm in a way that scared me. The kind of calm that only comes after devastation has already burned through you. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos, receipts, a private investigator's report she'd commissioned after Ryan started acting strangely. Hotels, restaurants, gifts. Emily had posted on social media claiming she'd bought herself. She told Ryan she was going to ruin Daniel, Melissa said softly. She said men like him only understand consequences when you hit their reputation. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. "She blamed you too," Melissa added. "Said you were collateral." I swallowed hard. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Melissa looked me straight in the eye. "Because she destroyed my marriage and then played victim. I won't let her do that to someone else." She agreed to testify. With Melissa on board, Emily's case imploded completely. Mackenzie stopped posturing. Her emails shifted tone. Less righteous outrage, more damage control. But Emily didn't stop. She launched a blog, survivornotsilence.com. Daily posts about legal abuse, about powerful people trying to erase her. She gave interviews to small podcasts, framed herself as a cautionary tale. Nathan documented every appearance. "Each one," he said, "is another nail." 3 weeks before trial, we sat in a settlement conference. Mackenzie arrived late, jaw tight. Her offer was absurd. Emily would agree to delete the posts if we dropped the lawsuit and paid her $50,000 for emotional distress. Nathan laughed out loud. "Is this a joke?" "She suffered," Mackenzie insisted. "She lost her job." "Because she committed defamation," Nathan shot back, "which she admitted to under oath." He slid a document across the table. "Our offer," he said calmly, $175,000 in damages, full legal fees, a public retraction and apology, an NDA preventing her from mentioning Lauren or Daniel again. Mackenzie's face darkened. "That's extortion." "No," Nathan replied. "That's accountability." Emily rejected it. That sealed her fate. Trial was scheduled for 6 weeks out. In that time, Emily's support evaporated. The GoFundMe stalled after people started asking questions. Vanessa distanced herself once she was deposed and realized reposting lies had consequences. Ryan disappeared entirely. Emily, alone, doubled down. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. But I also felt something else, steady. For the first time since that Tuesday morning, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was ready. Trial week arrived with the kind of quiet that feels artificial, like the air before a storm you already know is inevitable. I stood outside the courthouse that first morning, smoothing my blazer with hands that had stopped shaking days ago. Fear had burned itself out, replaced by something colder. Focus, resolve. The understanding that whatever happened inside that building, the truth was finally going to exist somewhere louder than a comment section. Emily arrived 10 minutes later. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed the image she presented. Conservative dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back neatly. She looked smaller than I remembered, fragile, victimized. Her family filled 2 rows behind her. Parents, siblings, cousins. People who had welcomed me into their home for birthdays and holidays now stared at me like I was a villain from a story they'd already decided how to tell. On my side sat my parents, my sister, Daniel, and a handful of friends who had never wavered even when staying quiet would have been easier. Nathan leaned over and whispered, "Remember, jurors don't need drama. They need clarity." The opening statements set the tone. Nathan stood calmly, hands resting on the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "this case is not about silencing a woman. It's about consequences for deliberate lies. The defendant, Emily Carter, knowingly published false statements accusing Daniel Harris of infidelity. She did so with malicious intent as retaliation for a financial disagreement, and she did it knowing those lies would damage reputations, careers, and families." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Mackenzie followed with something theatrical. She spoke about power imbalances, about emotional truth, about how women are punished for speaking up. Emily cried softly beside her. I watched the jurors' faces carefully. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked unconvinced. Day 1 was procedural. Evidence admission. Ground rules. Day 2 was when everything cracked open. I testified first. Nathan walked me through the relationship timeline, how Daniel and Emily had ended things, how Daniel and I built something steady afterward, the financial argument, the posts, the fallout. When he asked me how it felt to wake up to my life being rewritten online, my voice wavered despite myself. It felt like being erased, I said, like I didn't matter except as a character in someone else's story. Mackenzie's cross-examination was sharp. "Ms. Mitchell," she said, "isn't it true Daniel was controlling about money?" "No," I replied evenly. "He was responsible." "You supported him in confronting Emily about her spending?" I supported honesty. "So you admit you sided against a woman who felt financially restricted?" I sided with facts. She tried to imply I was complicit, that I'd encouraged the lawsuit, that I was hiding behind Daniel. It didn't land, because the evidence was relentless. Screenshots, timestamps, texts. By the time I stepped down, the jurors were already flipping through their binders. Day 3 was Emily's turn. She cried through most of her testimony, speaking about betrayal and intuition and heartbreak. "I just knew," she said again. "A woman knows." Nathan waited. Then he stood. "Miss Carter," he said, "you testified you knew Daniel cheated. Can you provide a single piece of evidence?" Silence. "Any text, photo, witness?" Nothing. He pulled up her own posts on the screen. "You didn't say you felt cheated on," he continued. "You stated as fact that he cheated with multiple women. That's a specific allegation. Who were they?" Emily looked at Mackenzie. Mackenzie objected. The judge overruled. I can't remember." Nathan nodded slowly. "Let's talk about intent." He displayed the text exchange with Vanessa, the one where Emily said she'd teach him a lesson. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Emily's mother covered her mouth. Vanessa's name came up again when Nathan explained republication liability, her role, her encouragement. Then came Ryan's video deposition. Watching him admit to the affair on a courtroom screen felt surreal, smaller than I'd imagined. Cowardly, even. But the real shift happened when Melissa Cooper took the stand. She didn't cry. She didn't dramatize. She spoke with quiet precision about discovering the affair, about hiring a private investigator, about the photos, the receipts, the timelines. "She told my husband she was going to ruin Daniel," Melissa said, "because he wouldn't give her money. She said men only learn through humiliation." Mackenzie objected furiously. The judge allowed it. Melissa turned slightly toward the jury. "She wasn't confused," she said. "She was deliberate." That was the moment I felt the room change. This wasn't about belief anymore. It was about pattern. By the time closing arguments arrived, Emily looked hollow. Nathan's closing was devastating in its simplicity. "This isn't about feelings," he said. "This is about facts, lies told publicly, damage caused intentionally, and a defendant who continued defaming even after being warned to stop." Mackenzie tried one last time to frame Emily as misunderstood, but the evidence drowned her out. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, my heart hammered so loudly I barely heard the foreperson speak. "On the count of defamation per se," she said, "we find in favor of the plaintiff." My breath caught. "Compensatory damages, $200,000. Punitive damages, $100,000. The courtroom erupted. Emily sobbed uncontrollably. Her father shouted. The judge ordered silence. Then came the injunction. Emily was permanently prohibited from making any public statements about Daniel or me. A full retraction and apology was ordered within 48 hours. I didn't look at Emily. I didn't need to. Justice had already spoken. The verdict didn't feel loud the way movies promise it will. There was no triumphant music swelling in my chest, no sudden rush of relief that knocked me back into my seat. What I felt instead was a strange, almost uncomfortable stillness, like the world had finally stopped shouting long enough for me to breathe. Emily collapsed into sobs behind her table. Her mother cried openly. Her father had to be restrained when he started yelling that the system was rigged and anti-woman. The judge warned him once, then had him escorted out. I didn't react. I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, staring at the wood grain on the table in front of me, grounding myself in something real. Nathan leaned over and whispered, "It's over." But it wasn't. Not yet. The judge cleared his throat. "Miss Carter," he said firmly, "this court also issues a permanent injunction. You are prohibited from making any public statements regarding Mr. Harris or Ms. Mitchell, directly or indirectly, in perpetuity. Any violation will result in immediate contempt proceedings." Emily barely seemed to hear him. "You are further ordered," the judge continued, "to post a full retraction and apology on all platforms where the original defamatory statements were made within 48 hours. The gavel struck. That sound, sharp, final, was the moment I felt something loosen in my chest, not joy. Closure. 6 months later, life looked nothing like it had before that Tuesday morning. But it finally belonged to me again. Collecting money from someone with no job and no assets turned out to be exactly as impossible as Nathan had warned. Emily filed for bankruptcy within a month of the judgment. Most of the $300,000 existed only on paper, and I was okay with that. Because the real consequence wasn't financial, it was permanent. The court-ordered retraction went live exactly 47 hours later. I, Emily Carter, publicly retract all statements made about Daniel Harris and Lauren Mitchell regarding infidelity. These statements were false and made with malicious intent. I apologize for the harm caused to their reputations, careers, and personal relationships. This retraction is made pursuant to court order following a defamation judgment against me. People screenshot it within minutes. It spread faster than the original accusations ever had. The comments were brutal. Some sympathetic, many not. The internet, it turns out, has little patience for proven liars. Her GoFundMe was shut down shortly after. Fraud reports flooded in once the judgment became public. You can't raise money based on claims a court has ruled were intentionally false. Last I heard through mutual acquaintances, Emily moved back in with her parents in another state. Her career in marketing was effectively over. No firm wanted someone whose name was now permanently attached to a malicious defamation verdict. She still told anyone who would listen that she was a victim of the legal system. But her audience had dwindled to almost no one. Vanessa stopped posting about standing with survivors. Legal depositions have a way of sobering people up. She never mentioned Emily by name again. Ryan vanished completely. His marriage did not survive the exposure. Melissa divorced him and, according to Nathan, who followed everything like a true legal nerd, took him for everything the law allowed. Karma, apparently, doesn't rush, but it does arrive. As for me, the paid administrative leave ended the week after the verdict. My boss and Shannon from HR called me into a meeting, both looking uncomfortable. "We owe you an apology," my boss said. "We should have trusted you from the beginning." They reinstated me immediately. They also gave me a raise, partly for performance, partly, I suspect, out of guilt. Either way, my reputation at work was stronger than it had ever been. Everyone knew I'd been falsely accused, and that I'd handled it without turning my life into a public spectacle. People respected that. Dating became complicated. Some men saw me as the woman who sued her boyfriend's ex. Others saw me as someone who stood her ground when it mattered. I wasn't in a rush. Daniel and I took things slowly after everything. Therapy helped, time helped more. We rebuilt trust not because it was broken between us, but because the world had tried so hard to break it for us. My mother still brings Emily up at family dinners sometimes, shaking her head and saying, "I knew something was off about her." My sister jokes that I should frame the verdict and hang it in the hallway. Maybe I will. Nathan and I still meet for drinks occasionally. He uses my case when he lectures young attorneys about documentation, restraint, and the power of digital evidence. It's a perfect example, he always says. Clear defamation, clear malice, and a defendant who simply could not stop talking. He's not wrong. If there's one thing this experience taught me, it's this: silence is not weakness. Documentation is power, and justice doesn't live on social media. It lives in patience, evidence, and the willingness to let the truth take its time. Emily thought she could destroy lives with a few carefully worded posts and a crying selfie. She thought being loud meant being right. She thought sympathy would shield her from accountability. She was wrong. Sometimes the most satisfying ending isn't revenge. It's vindication. It's watching lies collapse under their own weight. It's knowing that when everything was stripped away, screenshots, hashtags, outrage, what remained was the truth. And that, unlike a viral post, lasts.